Imagine this, a world that has gone through destruction, pain, and chaos is finally ready for a new beginning. What if someone told you that something amazing is coming, 1,000 years of peace? This is not just a dream but a promise from God to humanity. How will it happen? Who will be part of this incredible kingdom? And what do we need to do to be there? Subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss the most inspiring and meaningful stories about faith, hope, and the future of humanity. Watch this video until the end because today we'll share a story about God's promise for all of us. Enjoy! The world became still, almost as if time had stopped. The heavens opened, and a bright light, like lightning, filled the earth. People lifted their eyes to the sky, some filled with awe, others with fear. At that moment, every person felt something great and unstoppable approaching. A trumpet sound, loud and clear, echoed through the air. It wasn't just a noise, it was a call that reached deep into every heart. Time seemed to pause for everyone. Angels, shining like fire, appeared across the skies. Their presence was both powerful and breathtaking. Then Jesus appeared, surrounded by light and glory beyond description. He wasn't just a king but also a judge before whom no one could hide. His gaze looked straight into people's hearts, and everyone knew that nothing could be kept secret from him. The earth trembled as the judgment began. The books of life were opened, and every page showed the story of every person. Every action, word, and hidden thought was written there. People looked at their stories and understood, nothing could be hidden from God. Some fell to their knees, crying with tears streaming down their faces, "Lord, forgive me." Their voices filled the air, joining the songs of the angels. They knew only Jesus' mercy could save them. Others stood with hard hearts, refusing to admit their mistakes. Even as eternity stood before them, they would not change. It was a moment of complete truth, where everyone saw their life as God saw it. Judgment Day was not only a time of fear but also a moment of hope. Those who remained faithful to God, who loved others, heard words that filled their hearts with joy. "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." But for those who rejected God, there were other words: "Depart from me, you who work evil." These words thundered through the sky. The earth was ready for a new time. The judgment wasn't the end but the beginning. It was the moment when good and evil were separated forever, like wheat from weeds. The heavens shone brighter than ever, announcing the arrival of a time long awaited by the faithful. The age of sin was over. Ahead was 1,000 years of peace, a time when the earth would know what it means to live under the rule of the true King. When the judgment was over, a peaceful silence came over the earth, like the first dawn of creation. The air felt clean and fresh, as if it had been washed by heavenly waters. The sun rose over the horizon, wrapping the earth in soft, golden light. Everything that seemed lifeless began to bloom again. Satan, who had caused pain for so long, was finally bound. His lies, fears, and power disappeared like fog under the morning sun. People felt the heavy weight they carried all their lives lift from their hearts. It was like waking up from a bad dream. The earth was transformed. Places that were once dry and lifeless became lush gardens. Rivers of clear water flowed through green fields, and animals that once fought now lived in peace. Wolves rested beside lambs, and lions ate grass instead of hunting. People watched these wonders with smiles, feeling the lightness in their souls. In this new world, people lived in peace and harmony. Suffering, sickness, and war were now only memories of the past. Fear and worry were replaced with joy so deep it was hard to describe. Those who were resurrected with Jesus ruled alongside him. They were not rulers by earthly standards but served others with love and justice. Every day, they learned from Jesus and felt his presence with them. In the millennial kingdom, there was no injustice. No one went hungry, and no one felt lonely. People came together as one family, as God intended from the very beginning. They worked, sang, and prayed together. God was with them. His light didn't shine from far away, it was close, something they could feel deeply. People could hear his voice as he spoke to them. It was a time when everyone understood how much God loved and valued them. In this peaceful world, people began to see each other differently. Old grudges disappeared. Those who were once enemies now embraced. They realized that fear and disagreements were things of the past. For everyone, the dawn of the millennial kingdom was like opening a new chapter of life. It wasn't just a time without evil, it was a time when every person felt like part of something greater. Finally, humanity understood God's plan from the very beginning. And in this world, full of joy and peace, everyone knew one thing: the best was still yet to come. The world stood still, almost as if time itself had frozen. The heavens opened, and a bright light, like lightning, spread across the earth. People raised their eyes to the sky, some with awe, others with fear. At that moment, every soul felt something powerful, something unstoppable approaching. A trumpet sounded, loud and clear, cutting through the silence. It wasn't just a sound, it was a call that touched the deepest part of every person's heart. Time seemed to pause. Angels, glowing like fire, appeared across the horizon. Their presence was both majestic and overwhelming. Then Jesus appeared, surrounded by a light so pure, so full of glory, it was hard to describe. He wasn't just the king, he was the judge. His gaze pierced through every heart, and everyone knew that no secret could be hidden from him. The earth shook as judgment began. The books of life were opened, and every person's story was written there. Every deed, every word, even every thought was recorded. People looked at their stories and knew nothing could be hidden from God. Some fell to their knees, tears streaming down their faces as they cried, "Lord, forgive me." Their voices echoed across the heavens, joining the songs of angels. They understood that only the mercy of Jesus could save them. Others stood stubbornly, their hearts hardened. Even as eternity stood before them, they refused to acknowledge their mistakes. This was a moment of complete truth, where every person saw their life exactly as God saw it. Judgment Day was not just a day of fear, it was also a day of hope. Those who stayed faithful to God, who showed love and kindness to others, heard the most beautiful words, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world." But for those who rejected God, there were different words, "Depart from me, you who practice evil." These words were like thunder, shaking the heavens. The earth was ready for a new era. The judgment wasn't the end, it was the beginning. It was a time to separate good from evil, like wheat from weeds. The heavens shone brighter than ever, signaling the start of something amazing. The age of sin was over. Ahead lay 1,000 years of peace, a time when the earth would finally live under the rule of the true king. When the judgment ended, peace covered the earth like the first morning of creation. The air felt clean and fresh, as if it had been washed by heavenly streams. The sun rose over the horizon, bathing the land in soft golden light. Everything that once seemed dead and lifeless now came back to life. Satan, the one who had caused so much destruction, was finally bound. His lies, his fear-mongering, his power, all of it was gone, like fog vanishing under the warmth of the sun. People felt as if a great weight had been lifted from their shoulders. It was like waking up from a nightmare. the earth was transformed. Places that were once deserts now blossomed into gardens. Rivers of clear, fresh water flowed through green valleys. Animals that had once been enemies now lived together in peace. Wolves rested beside lambs, and lions ate grass instead of hunting. People looked at these miracles with smiles, feeling joy they had never known before. In this new world, people lived in perfect harmony. Suffering, sickness, and war were things of the past. Worry and fear had been replaced with deep and lasting joy. Those who had been resurrected with Jesus ruled alongside him. They weren't rulers by the standards of the old world, they were servants who led with love and fairness. Every day, they learned from Jesus, feeling his presence near and following his teachings. In the millennial kingdom, there was no injustice. No one went hungry, no one felt abandoned. People were once again a family, as God had intended from the very beginning. They worked together, they sang together, and they prayed together. God was with them. His light wasn't distant, it was close, something they could feel all around them. People could hear his voice speaking directly to them. It was a time when everyone truly understood how much they were loved and valued by their Creator. Those living in this new world began to see each other in a new way. Old resentments disappeared. People who had once been enemies now embraced. They realized that fear and conflict belonged to a past that was no longer part of their lives. For everyone, the dawn of the millennial kingdom felt like opening a new chapter in life. It wasn't just a time without evil, it was a time when every person felt part of something far greater. Humanity had finally come to understand God's plan from the very beginning. And in this peaceful world, full of light and harmony, one truth was clear to everyone: the best was still yet to come. The 1,000 years of peace had come to an end, but the silence that had covered the earth began to change. People, who had grown used to harmony and calm, started to feel the air grow heavy, as if an unseen shadow was moving across the world. Satan, who had been bound for 1,000 years, was released. His return was like a sudden spark of darkness in a world of light. He walked the earth again, and his voice was as smooth and cunning as it had been in the Garden of Eden. He did not come with open force, but with whispers, with questions that planted doubt. Is this really enough for you? Why do you submit? Don't you want more? He began his old work, spreading lies and sowing doubt. People, who had lived in peace and joy, started to question, what if he's right? Is there something we're missing? Some stayed loyal to God. They remembered what the world had gone through to reach this time of peace. They saw how God had guided and protected them. Their hearts were filled with gratitude, and they prayed for the strength to resist temptation. But others hesitated. Evil found its way into their hearts, reminding them of old desires and pride they thought they had left behind. Satan used these weaknesses, gathering an army of those who chose to turn away from God, trying once again to challenge his rule. This army was vast, as countless as the sand on the seashore. They marched forward with confidence, believing they could defeat the heavens. The righteous could have been afraid, seeing such a large force. But they knew their strength didn't lie in numbers, it was in God, who had already overcome evil once before. When darkness rose, God acted. There was no long war, no drawn-out battle. The victory was swift and final. Satan and his followers were thrown into the lake of fire, where they would never again harm anyone. This was the end of all evil. After this final test, the world became pure once more. Those who remained faithful understood that their choice had not been in vain. They had endured the last trial, and now their faith was as strong as gold refined in fire. The test of humanity was not just a challenge of faith, it was the moment of ultimate triumph for good. It was a time when God showed that love is stronger than hate, and light always defeats darkness. When the final test was over, the world seemed to take a deep breath of relief. Darkness disappeared forever, and along with it went fear, pain, and suffering. The people left on earth looked up at the heavens, knowing that something wonderful was about to happen. God began to create again. The earth, which had been damaged by sin and evil, faded away. It wasn't destruction, it was transformation. Everything old passed, and in its place appeared something more beautiful than anyone could have ever imagined. The new earth and the new heavens sparkled with purity. There was no more destruction, no more sickness, no more death. Fields were green, mountains stood tall and majestic, and rivers flowed with crystal clear water. Every corner of this new world shone with beauty and peace. It was a place without any trace of sin. At the center of this new creation was the New Jerusalem. This city came down from heaven, shining like a precious jewel. Its walls were made of jasper, and its streets were pure gold, so bright they looked like glass. The gates of the city, made of pearl, stood open, welcoming everyone to enter. The people who saw this city couldn't hold back their tears of joy. It was the home they had dreamed of, the place where they would be with God forever. In the middle of the city was the throne of God and the Lamb. From the throne flowed the river of life, clear as crystal, bringing life to everything it touched. On either side of the river grew the tree of life, its leaves bringing healing to all nations. People walked toward the throne, and everyone who came near felt the warmth of God's love. His presence wasn't distant, it was close, filling their hearts with peace and joy that couldn't be described with words. There was no more night, no more pain. The very idea of suffering had disappeared. Each person standing before God understood that their long journey was over. They were finally home. In this new world, there were no temples, because God Himself was the temple. There was no need for the sun or moon, because His light shone brightly, guiding everyone. People walked in that light, singing, celebrating, and praising God. "Behold, I make all things new," God said. His words weren't just a statement, they were a promise fulfilled. This new earth wasn't just a place to live, it was a home for every soul to find peace. People understood that they would live forever in a world filled with joy, love, and purpose beyond measure. Every story, every battle, every trial they had faced now made sense. They were all part of God's great plan, which ended with the triumph of life over death, light over darkness, and love over hate. And in this new world, there were no more goodbyes. Now everyone stayed together, with God, forever. A world that once knew pain, darkness, and separation was now a distant memory. Everything that seemed lost was now restored, filled with purpose and meaning. God had fulfilled His promise, the one He made at the very beginning of time. The people who lived by faith, who had endured trials and challenges, now stood before God. They looked back on their lives, seeing every step of their journey in a new light. They remembered the moments when they stumbled, when doubts and fears had tried to take over. But now, all of that was only a shadow of the past, brightened by the light of God's glory. "Behold, I make all things new," the Creator's voice echoed once again. These words were not just heard, they were felt deep within every heart. They filled each person with an indescribable joy. Every individual felt a love they had never known before. It wasn't an ordinary love, it was unconditional and eternal. It was God's love, a love that didn't judge but embraced, a love that healed every wound and replaced every sorrow with peace. God stood among His people, and there was no longer any barrier between Him and His creation. Loneliness was gone. Everyone knew that their Creator was with them, not far away, but close, as close as their own breath. In the New Jerusalem, the sound of songs filled the air. These weren't just human voices, they were the voices of a heavenly choir, harmonizing with the hearts of every person. These songs told the story of God's faithfulness, of how He had carried His children through every storm, even when they felt alone. Those who had once cried were now laughing. Those who had suffered now felt a peace that could not be broken. God Himself wiped away the tears from their eyes, and in that moment, all the pain that had ever existed was erased. "You were mine from the very beginning," God said gently. His words felt like a warm embrace, comforting every heart. Standing before God, the people understood one profound truth: everything they had gone through led to this moment. Their struggles were not wasted, their faith was rewarded. Now, they lived in a world where every moment was filled with joy and purpose. There was no fear of the future, because eternity stretched endlessly before them, a promise of peace and love without end. The epilogue of this story is not an ending, it is the beginning of something eternal. God's promise of forever love and life was fulfilled. And now, every person who hears this story is left with a question: what place will I have in God's great plan? If this story touched your heart, give it a like. This helps us share inspiring messages like this with even more people. Write in the comments what you think about God's promises and how they impact your life. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more stories that inspire and make you reflect on life. Thank you for being with us, and see you in the next video.